Hello, welcome to Bottom Line, your enlightenment campaign talk show. Tonight we frame events in Makeni nearly a week ago. What was supposed to be a simple exercise turned out righteous. Officials of the country's anti-graft agency ACC disengaged from questioning former President Ernest Bai Koroma on corruption allegations due to protests by both the young and the aged, who mounted roadblocks and displayed masquerades, apparently to terrify the ACC team. The protests paralyzed the streets of Makeni, particularly the road leading to the residence of the former President Ernest Bai Koroma, bringing every economic activity to a standstill. Normalcy, however, has returned to the township. What went wrong? And moving forward, how do all the players handle such a situation? In the studios with me are the Accountability and Rule of Law Advocate Ibrahim Tomi, Coordinator of Operations at the ACC, Emmanuel Koivaya Amara, and Francis Languba Keili, Director of Planning, Interagency Relations and Strategic Communications Office of National Security, or ONS. Welcome to Bottom Line, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
You too can also be part of this program by following us live on Facebook at SLBC TV channel 31 or through SMS to 030-022-639. Number again, 030-022-639. My name is Joseph Igbenda Kapua. Welcome back to the program. Now let's remind ourselves about the ugly incident that took center stage in Makeni last Thursday.
Inside Makeni town, as they see the so-called and amendment, they're under in attention. They see the Christians, they're under in attention, and the Leone, they see the crowd, they're all time for council. Solidarity to the former president of the Republic of Sierra Leone, when at the chairman, Dr. Ernest Bai Koroma. The government will have given update on the ground.
The road, nobody know for Kaifala, nobody know for Kaifala. Look at, I didn't say the domo check the gate, now they are the super.
Well, excerpts of the events that occurred in Makeni last Thursday. Now, let me start with you, Coordinator of Operations, Mr. Amara. It would appear the Commission, the ACC, bent backwards on the decision to question former President Koroma at his residence. I mean, on this same program, Bottom Line, last week, the ACC Commissioner, your boss, had this to say. Just take a listen.
Inviting President Koroma to make a statement is like inviting any other person to make a statement. He's a citizen, a senior citizen, who should be an example for the country. And there are questions surrounding his own dealings as president in the country. He's not above the law. We have been investigating President Koroma a long time. So firstly, I have to make it clear that the invitation to President Koroma is not really predicated upon the conclusions of the COI. Although issues in the COI were there, but we have to understand this now, that there are investigations which we had started, which concern and touch President Koroma, which were before us. We were just waiting for the right time to speak to him. And these investigations have gone in advanced stages, but it will be unfair for us to reach a conclusion without having to speak to him. There are also several files which we have spoken to previous government officers, including the secretary to president, to him, Mr. Oshokoka. Those people have been making statements to the ACC. Okay, ministers, issues concerning various parastatals, the dealings of NATCOM, for example, NACIT. There are many things when you speak to them, they will say we did it because The president asked us to do so. The president telephoned and said this should happen. The president was involved somehow. The president gave executive clearance for it to be done. It is only but fair, even for him, for us to have a conversation with him around these things, for him to have his own views on them. You know how Sierra Leone is. People always say that the party tell me. But it is possible that the party did not even tell them. It is now our responsibility to confront President Nkrumah with some of these things, for him to have a view on it. And we were going to do so with all respect to him. But I find it strange, first of all, he wrote a letter, a notice which basically showed that he was enraged by the invitation to him to make a statement. No, sir, he's not above the law. And it is in his interest for him to speak on some of these issues. Executive orders are the powers by which the president exercises executive authority. If other people are signing it in his name, it has to come from him. And therefore, there are many that happen under his watch. So he has to see them, and we ask him, did you really direct this? Did you really instruct this? Maybe he did not. Maybe he was not aware. Maybe he did. You see why it is important that President Nkrumah comes and sits with us to have a chat. I call it a conversation. That's why I've been laughing when the whole country is jumping all over the place. People have been a BG3, people are making audios on social media, people are going at each other on social media, people are insulting me and things like that. No, it's one of those things that have to happen if we are going to fight for the soul of this country, because it lays the proper foundation for us to go. And that is why a lot of people have been asking me, why did you start President Nkrumah? It is the best place to start. Okay. Because once you get that in place and you hear what he has to say and the level of cooperation he gives, it will be easy for other people to fall into place. And that is why I am using this medium again to send a message to President Nkrumah to say, look, we are a state institution, we are merely doing our job. You are a respectable statesman, a former president. Come, let's sit down, let's all respect each other and do our job, and we'll treat you as one. But to want us to go to his house and he's sipping whiskey while we ask him questions about what is happening in the country, I don't think it is fair to the country for that to happen.
You just listen there, but to want us to go to his residence, talk to him about this, I don't think that is fair to the country. How did you settle eventually on interviewing him at his residence?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kapoa. You haven't listened to the commissioner. You must have heard him say, you know, the work that we do as a commission is to actually save the soul of Sierra Leone. In saving the soul of an entity, a being, you have to be delicately careful. Prior to our departure on Thursday, we had engagements with the legal team, the legal team of the former president, headed by Mr. Joseph Fitzgerald Amara. We actually had not settled on going to interview the former president in his residence, as you may have heard the commissioner say. When we went to Makeni on Thursday morning with we had expected, because we had failed on an option that we had discussed with Mr. Amara, that the former president would come to our offices. But by reason of the fact that the commission's work is to actually ensure that the soul of Sierra Leone is rescued from getting into the furnace of fire, at a point, whilst we are on ground, we decided, all right, if it were securitized and if it were advised by the security, or if it were prudent security-wise, we would want to obtain the statement from the former president, and we agreed to move in. But then when the security on ground went and actually scanned the situation in Makeni, especially around the residence of the former president, it was found that it would not be prudent contingent upon the security then to have the anti-corruption team move in. And that was the reason why we disengaged. I would want the people of Sierra Leone to know that as per Section 5 of our Act, we are responsible to them. We listen to the people and we do the things which the people expect us as a commission, staff of which receive taxpayers' money at the end of every month. Probably we want to do what the people of Sierra Leone pay us to do. And obtaining, like you heard the commissioner say, we had commenced investigations into matters relating directly to the former president long before the establishment of the CY. But then we were waiting for a right moment to talk to him. And we thought the right moment was about then, and we needed to talk to him. But for security prudence or non-prudence, we are going to talk to him.
I will stay with you on this, but let me make it clear that we made efforts to get a member of the legal team for the former president, but we are yet to have confirmation on the start of this program. We hope they will also join us, but we actually sent an invitation and there are indications that they will be part of this program until the 11th hour. So hopefully a member of the legal team for the former president will join this discussion. Now, Mr. Amara, on the local radio program, the head of the legal team for the former president, himself former commissioner of the Anti-Corruption Commission, requested Mr. Kaifala, the now commissioner of the ACC, to have the interview done in Makeni in view, like you had the commissioner say, of his status as former president, but also to avoid possible, fanfare around the ACC office here in Freetown. The former president is from Makeni or thereabout and currently resides there. Did you weigh the security situation before agreeing to do the interview in Makeni? I mean, essentially, they had requested that this interview be done in Makeni, just so to avoid possible fanfare here in Freetown. I mean, what was your consideration in view of the fact that he hails from that end?
Well, our consideration was straightforward. The Anti-Corruption Commission operates in every region in Sierra Leone. Now, we have regional offices in Makeni, Boloko, Bo, Kenema, and even Kono. So the commission works and operates from any of those offices and still remains the Anti-Corruption Commission. So when the commissioner received the request from the legal team to actually have the interviews in Makeni, we had a number of considerations. One, yes, it will be possible because having the interviews at Mena Hills, in our Mena Hills offices in Makeni, would not be different from having the interviews done, at our Gloucester Street headquarters. Second, we're mindful of the fact that the former president is a statesman who served in a very, very principal capacity in this country as the first gentleman. Secondly, as an institution, we thought and we still believe that being a statesman, he actually could have, acted those. And that was the discussion. At some point when I was discussing personally, because I was a focal person discussing with the team lead of the former president's lawyers, we actually at a point ruled out both places in Makeni and we are discussing a third option. But until we got to Makeni, it was not resolved. So the only other opportunity, the only other, sensible or commonsensical place to have the meeting was in the offices of Mena.
With the events in Makeni eventually, do you regret that decision to have the interview done there?
Well, we as a commission would not say we regretted going to Makeni because we were doing our job. And we actually, like I told you, we have a regional office in Makeni, which very much operates like we operate at Gloucester Street. So we do not regret anytime we have an opportunity, talking to anybody, and if we are prudent in the circumstances we are the same, we'll give an opportunity. In the past, for instance, not under the Ben Kaifala administration, we have had cause to speak to the then Vice President, although the difference there is that we spoke to him, we interviewed him in his office, whilst he was in office. We did not go to his house.
As Vice President?
Yes, as Vice President. Okay. That's the former vice president. Whilst he was in office as vice president. Yes, Mr. Victor Fu. But since he ceased being vice president, for instance, we've not been to his house because we've not had cause to actually go to his house. We've not had an issue wherein we would invite him, he will not come. Away from what we spoke to him about while he was vice president, we've had him come to the commission's offices on a number of occasions for 2 different investigations. And all of those interview statements were obtained in our offices at Gloucester Street. We do not regret going to Makeni because we know and we still believe as a commission we are acting within that which was reasonable, in the sense of the execution of our duties. But then we regret the fact that it was not possible that we talk to the former vice president based on the security makeup, the security non-prudence there.
Mr. Amara, Koivaya Amara. I mean, we understand from news reports that the lawyers for the former president, Ernest Bai Krumah, actually called you, leading the team in Makeni, and we are willing to pick you up and brave through the protesters, to the house of the former president, but you refused. What was your assessment of the security situation? As an anti-corruption outfit, we work not only with, state entities, but we also have our own mechanism within. But our reliance in circumstances of such nature would actually always be on all the state apparatus advice together. Whilst in Makeni, we got a call, of course, by midday, we actually realized that it was dangerous even stepping out, especially going towards the former president's house. I was particularly online with the legal lead of the former president, and at some point when we had resolved it was not prudent and we had been advised, I even did send him a notice notifying him that no, we will not go to the president. Who did he notify?
JFK.
Who's JFK?
I mean Joseph Fitzgerald Kamara,
the former commissioner. The
former commissioner of the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Now head of the legal team for the former president.
He's head of the legal team of the former president. He's been the focal person on the side of the suspect, and I mean the former president Ernest Bai Krumah, and I also have been the focal person on our side at the Anti-Corruption Commission. We had started engagement, and I must state that the legal team has been very, very cooperative, and they've been very, very, fruitful in all of the engagements that we've had. The engagements have been very, very fruitful, but for the fact that we could not, as expected, talk to their client, who happens to be suspect, the former president of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Ernest Bai Krumah. I sent him about 12:07 on Thursday, haven't assessed the security situation and haven't been briefed by the security apparatus, notwithstanding the fact that we had our own men very firmly on the ground, getting information, having information intel from all spheres within Makeni. I did inform him that the commission had reached a decision not to go to the former president's house, residence, and that he needed, and that was like he was notified as per that conversation, that correspondence, he was notified that the former president, his client, the suspect, must be brought over to the commission's offices at Mena Hills at 1400 hours on that day. But before 1400 hours, Mr. Joseph Fitzgerald Kamara, together with one other lawyer on the team, Boniface, they drove to the offices and came, and we were there saying they were there to pick us to actually go to the residence of the former president. Well, anyway, the long and short of it is that the engagement we had was that, being the lead of the ACC team, I told him no, albeit he were my senior in the business of the law. If I were an individual and I work in an individual capacity, in the instant circumstance, then I wouldn't have had any troubles going with him. But then, as a public officer, leading a team of public officers, our advice on security would not come from him. It would rather come from a state entity. And we had gotten advice from a state entity, and we had our men on the ground. We are on that until about 3 o'clock from when he went, about over 2 o'clock, going to 3 o'clock. And the energy of our men was still bubbling, but the fact of the matter is the security situation did not change at all. So because of that, the commission had to disengage.
All right, Mr. Ibrahim Toby, what we know is that it did not happen. I mean, the questioning, the interview did not take place as planned. Where does this take accountability to?
Well, I hope that they will reschedule it, and we have been told that it will be rescheduled. We don't know whether it has happened, because I have been advising that perhaps in the future, to the extent possible, it shouldn't be advertised in the way it was for the aborted one. But it obviously doesn't send the right message. That was basically obstruction of justice in a sense. There's a suspect. You had Mr. Amara referred to the former president as a suspect. Now, it is in the interest of the suspect, perhaps more than anyone else, that he or she clears his name. There is a set of allegations against him. He doesn't want those allegations to be tried only in the court of public opinion. He wants a state institution like the ACC to speak to him, and ACC has not indicted him. Let's be clear about this. They may very well listen to him, haven't had his own version of things. They will just drop the investigations and move forward. But when we are all left in this state of suspense, effort, the ACC bent backwards over, it has to be said. I understand that it's been previously done for very senior members of the state, including the former vice president. That's fine. It is not a hard and fast rule that because you are a former president or a senior state official, interview should be conducted in your residence or in your office. It was basically, I guess, a show of respect by the ACC. Unfortunately, persons who went out there believing that they were supporting the president, unfortunately, did far worse than they can imagine. It's unfortunate, and I think it also, Mr. Capo, it also raises a question of, do people really understand the role of the ACC? The ACC represents us, the people, the state. And I've seen this happen before. Let's be clear. I was there, you guys were here, when the former mayor, Herbert George Williams, was tried and convicted on at least one of the counts. We saw people hurling invectives at ACC prosecutors. It was the same for Haji Hafsat Kaba. I saw that in the folklore of the public. So it is not new, but it doesn't make it any less unfortunate. And that means that we have to continue working, which is why at the Center for Accountability and Rule of Law, we had a serious discussion about this and issued a press release to the effect that citizens must understand that the ACC represents us. They are fighting for us. But when we now set up roadblocks, really up in arms against the staff, and they feel like the people who are supposed to be fighting us are the ones basically compromising our security, it's a problem. It's problematic. How are you even sure that people like us who are commenting on these issues, or indeed the commissioner of the ACC and all the ACC staff, how can they be sure of their safety and security if they live among people who do not believe that they work for them or work in their interest? So it is a question of, is it about education? Civic education. Is it that people are loyal to individuals and their subgroups ahead of the state? There are so many questions that we should be asking, but at the end of the day, we have to conclude that such conduct is wrong, is unacceptable, and is criminal. And I hope that with more education and with more intervention, which is why I've said in the past, and let me repeat myself, that on that day, I would have expected a lot more from the former president and his team. At the very least, someone ought to have gotten out there instead of running to Mr. Koivaya with a van to say, let's go, we can assure you of your security. Get out there, just disperse them or ask them to disperse.
Was it a missed opportunity for the former president?
It was clearly a missed opportunity, at least to the extent that he did not call them out when he issued that press release. There was a press release issued later in the day. As I said, even though he was not out, even if he wasn't aware, when that conduct was ongoing, but at the time that that press release was released, he ought to have known or had reason to know that such an incident occurred outside, just outside his compound, and he ought to have condemned it in no uncertain terms.
Now, by not condemning the conduct of the riotous youths, who mounted roadblocks, preventing the ACC from carrying out their statutory mandate, would you assert that the former president tacitly, if you like, feared the conduct of the youths?
Again, let me be clear. I do not have any evidence to the fact that he sent them out there or he even sponsored them. But what we cannot disagree on, I hope, is the fact that as a former president, one who did a lot to strengthen the Anti-Corruption Commission, including by pushing for an amendment of the Anti-Corruption Act 2000 to ensure
repealed.
Yes, it was repealed, and then essentially a new act, an ACC Act 2008, was promulgated, strengthening the ACC, and every time he had an opportunity, he would state his commitment to the fight against corruption. And we've seen snippets of some of his comments and statements while he was in office. Now, he ought to have, that was a moment of truth for him. For me, it was the moment of truth for him. He certainly could have done better, at least to the extent of calling out those who basically stopped the ACC from getting access to him. Because it has to be repeated, Mr. Kapua, that as much as it is in the interest of the state to investigate and prosecute crimes, it is absolutely in the interest of the individual to have an opportunity to clear his or her name. If you don't do that, that doubt, and as I keep saying, you have children, you have family members, you have your lineage. If you don't have an opportunity or allow that opportunity to clear your name, it's not going to tell well on you.
Mr. Tomi, the former president had lawyers with him. In fact, two of them former commissioners of the ACC. Did you expect the lawyers to advise the clients to address the protesters?
I mean, as you know, you may advise your client, but it's up to your client to basically pay heed to advice. I don't know if they did, but I'll be very disappointed if they did and he declined to do what they had been advised.
You'll also be disappointed if they did not.
I think they should be advising him on matters of law, and certainly not on not exactly.
All right. There is also a leaked recorded conversation between the former president and the current Inspector General of Police, where the former president was apparently urging the IG to carve his way through, as he has probably done before, to his house. What security implications would this have, led to?
Obviously, I mean, again, I hope this doesn't get lost in our conversation. We have to commend the leadership of the Israeli police and to some extent the Anti-Corruption Commission for exercising restraint. We could have easily seen another bloodbath in Makeni. And you have to give credit to the leadership of the Israeli police for asking their men to exercise restraint. Now, I think it is to the credit of the Israeli police that they did pay heed to the advice of former President Nkrumah. In other words, they decided not to brave it. Because also remember, keep in mind the local context. We know what happened in Makeni a few months ago when some young men were shot dead by security personnel. So certainly I do not discount the fact that there are certainly there's anger, there's some sort of resentment against Israeli police in Makeni. So it was about former President Nkrumah, but it was also perhaps about even the Israeli police. So having that in mind, it would have been unwise and certainly reckless for the Israeli police to have attempted to confront them by way of braving it into the former president's compound. So all around, it was a good decision, but it was really an unfortunate incident. And as I keep saying, those young men, mostly young men and women who stick out there that they need some more education, they need some more help.
Now, let me invite Mr. Languba from Mr. Keili from the Office of National Security, the ONS. I mean, law and order, if you like, was sacrificed in Makeni capacity in the face of senior security officials. Was it professionalism or betrayal of trust?
Well, I think let me set the context. Security requirements in such instances are the behest of the lead institution, in this case, the ACC. So whatever security provision we make is predicated upon the requirements of the ACC and not our own requirements. We can give our own professional input and the like. Of course, whether the meeting should have taken place in Makeni or wherever, that's another question. We have our own professional views on some of those things which we made known in our closed door sessions. But then suffice it to note that ACC was going to conduct an investigations and we were going to provide the requisite security. But of course, on hindsight, we did not also lose sight of the fact that there are political sensitivities around certain communities. Let's not lose sight of that fact. We talk about Makeni, that the incident that has happened just about a month ago, you know, as a security sector practitioner, you've got to realize that you've got to make adequate arrangements. You've got to have your plan A in terms of your operational plan. You've got to have your plan B. That's a professional operation, security operational plan that we developed. You understand? And even when we left here, we left on the notion that our personnel left on the notion that interviews were going to be conducted at the ACC office in Makeni. So the security provision we made was for the precincts of the ACC office in Makeni and the requisite functionaries that were going there. But in as much as we took cognizance of that, we also sent our intelligence operatives in advance. You understand? It is not that we do not have feeders, you know, that people are planning things on the ground, but intelligence is never foolproof. Yeah, you might have some inklings. You might have some inklings. But then, on the day in question, of course, Ibrahim, as Koivaya has already stated, I mean, they were there, you understand? And we are in constant touch with them because we coordinate security and even the operational plan, we coordinate all of those. It's the police that execute those ones on the ground. I will not call it failure. I will not call it or term it in the event that as if we shackled or reneged on our responsibility. No. We had the might, we had the wherewithal, people cannot know. But at that time, Mark P was already invoked, was even invoked. Now if you invoke Mark P in the event where people were using children as human shields, in the event where they came out with secret society devils, and when since December 2017, from a National Security Council directive, I was in that council directive, I briefed President Languba. It was in that council meeting that directive was taken to ban the activities of all secret societies from December 2017 to be precise 22nd December 2017. And that ban had been in existence even up to when we are speaking. And we know for a fact now that that whole thing was orchestrated, it was financed. We have documentary evidence, we have individuals, arrests have been effected and arrests are going to be continued to be effected. That is why even from our press release, you notice we came out with all of these things. In fact, one thing we had noticed, of course, when they came and requested for the ACC team to go to the president, the house of the president, there are so many security ramifications. Had they been held hostage, what are you going to do? You understand? Had any loss of life occurred, who will have been held responsible? Had we gone down to bulldoze our way with the ACC personnel that they must go and interview President Nkrumah at the expense of so many lives being lost? Because definitely there would have been resistance. Because it was well orchestrated, well planned, well financed. And we now know all of the operatives. Yeah? So there was no sincerity or purpose. You understand? There was no sincerity or purpose. Right. But on hindsight, it was because of our professionalism that we came back to the drawing board, admonished the ACC not to go there, and we also admonished ourselves based on our professional advice, not to invoke McP, but to retreat and allow and de-escalate tensions. I mean, we've seen this in Egypt, Romania, and other places where thousands of civilians will come in front of armored cars. Then I get Tahrir Square in Egypt, the revolution. I mean, you saw it. Yeah, are you going to kill thousands of people just to go and interview President Nkrumah? In fact, at the expense of the life of those people, we are no longer going to interview him. You are no longer going to arrest him. And there are so many security implications for those. So it was based on professionalism that we took that stand.
Mr. Keili, let's take a look at this.
Inside Makeni phone, as we see the so-called amendment, ongoing attention, the Christians, ongoing attention, and Leone, they all came to cancel solidarity to the former president of the Republic of Sierra Leone, when the chairman, Dr. Emmanuel, the program is still update on the ground.
And the put on the road, nobody know for Kaifala. Nobody know for Kaifala. Look at inside the domo right now, the gate now, they are the super.
This happened right before the security guys that were in Makeni. A state institution prevented Ibrahim from performing its duty. I mean, you may want to restate this. I mean, considering the assessment, security assessment that you considered that actually led to, what happened? People just sat by and allowed things just because they did not want to probably, have more light blame as it happened before.
Mr. Kapua, let me note that the security sector always have the might to exercise its constitutional authority. Yeah? And that right can never be appropriated to any other entity. It falls squarely within our purview. That is why even in McP we're talking about, it's a policy that has stood the test of time, continues to stand the test of time. That even where the resources of the police are exhausted, you can bring in the assets of the military to restore civil order. In this case, that's why we still have McP in existence. To be very honest with you, had we gone with the ACC personnel to the residence of President Nkrumah under such chaotic atmosphere, lives would have been lost. You understand? And you will think about the domino effect it will have on our international credibility, on even the image of the ACC. Of course, not even to talk about the image of the security sector, high-handedness, extrajudicial killings, and the like. You understand? You can always live to fight another day. Live to fight another day, like what is happening now. We know all of the culprits. They are now being arrested. They are being rounded up. They are being investigated. And those found wanted are going to be prosecuted. Yeah? But of course, what we want to do is to admonish their sponsors. Because I most times refer to these youths as perpetrators and victims. Because they are being misused by politicians year in, year out. Yeah? And when the time comes to go and provide security for them, so to speak, they are gladly willing to do so. On grounds of being intoxicated, dishing out monies to them, and the like. And suffice it to know, it's also even criminal to make use of children. I mean, children are in school. It was well orchestrated. They are taking those kids from school. Of course, not to talk about the banning on the activities of secret societies. All of what they did are criminal in nature. You understand? But what we want to admonish them is that it is not that the security sector renege on its responsibilities. No. It was an opportunity cost and a scale of preference. We are not wanted to have 20 lives lost just to go and interview President Nkrumah. Whatever you might say, President Nkrumah is always going to be interviewed. Even if he goes to heaven, he's going to be interviewed. And that's called for squarely within the remit of the ACC. But then on hindsight, going further, There are so many lessons that are learned. Perhaps some of us are thinking that it was going to be a civil process. Some are going to think that it was going to act like a statesman, a gentleman. Some are thinking that because even former vice presidents have been interviewed and issues have gone unnoticed, nothing was going to come out of it. But suffice it to know that ACC is still going to interview 50s, if not hundreds of people on those commission reports.
Let's talk about law and order. I mean, let's just factor that into your consideration.
Yes.
Talking about opportunity cost and all of this. Again, let's just for a moment consider law and order. You made a point that there is a ban on the display of
activities of
unauthorized masquerade and the like. Would you have been out-muscled by the youths if you tried restraining them? I mean, you just saw the number there. I mean, they were all over the place. And would that have been the case if you actually tried that?
Well, I will not say we would have been outdone bad because of the sheer strength that we had. We had static deployment in Makeni that was not even visible. Both military and police, static deployment, well armed. You understand? Have we actually unleashed those forces on the youth? I mean, at the end of the day, the youth will have run away. To be very honest with you, they will have run away, but then most of them will have been called casualties, and even there will have been fatalities. Because look at the sheer pandemonium. Even for everybody moving helter and skelter, you will imagine the pandemonium. Even if you don't shoot, but the stampede that will occur. You understand? So we had considerations of all of those that wanted to preserve a single life. We wanted to preserve a single life, and we don't want any lives to be lost in that kind of chaotic atmosphere.
Okay.
So that was why we took that decision. But in terms of might, I don't think whether those youths will have overpowered us.
Now again, Mr. Keili.
Yes.
The masquerades, I mean, like how do you call it, the so-called as the OJs, if you like, are believed to have supernatural powers. They can even strike you in your prime. You are certainly afraid of them, or are you not?
No, we can't be afraid of them. We have lived through the River War, where people used to refer to as invisible, when they are being gunned down on the streets of Bo and Kenema. I mean, I visit the evidences of those. You can see a man dressed with his armaments running away, from an armored tanker. You cannot dare stand before an armored tanker. And we have all of these paraphernalia. You understand? So let them not even go there. But at least, let me make this point. For all of those who are responsible, either serve as catalysts, as sponsors, as the case might be, are going to be brought to book for their actions.
All right. The program is Bottom Line, and it's coming to you from Broadcasting House here in England. My guests tonight are Coordinator of Operations at the Anti-Corruption Commission, Emmanuel Koivaya Amara. Mr. Francis Languba Keili is Director of Planning, Interagency Relations and Strategic Communications, Office of National Security, ONS, and Head of CAL, Center for Accountability and Rule of Law, Mr. Ibrahim to me. My name is Joseph Ebinda Kapua. We will go for a short break and we will come back, look at more issues, we'll look at your text messages, and we'll have to make a point that we made efforts to invite at least a member of the legal team of the former president, Ernest Bai Kroma. We're yet to see them in the studios. Hopefully we'll have one. This is Bottom Line. We're going to go for a short break. Welcome back to the program. If you're just joining us, this is Bottom Line, and my guests tonight include Mr. Ibrahim to me. He's the coordinator, the head of Center for Accountability and Rule of Law. Emmanuel Koivaya Amara is coordinator of operations at ACC, and Mr. Keili, Francis Languba Keili of the ONS. Let's see what text messages have been flowing in. This one here reads, no one is above the law in Sierra Leone. Let the former president face the interview with the ACC. Lawlessness and corruption for Don Natsaloon. People need to put their blind political support and see the process go through so that we can hold the present government responsible to give the same amount of their stewardship. Corruption must stop now in Sierra Leone. Our sweet country is going backward. Please, Mr. Commissioner, probably Koivaya promoted here. Let nothing stop you to save the soul of this country. This country is ours and it belongs to all of us. Indeed, Mr. Ibrahim told me, that was an obstruction of justice by lawless Makeni citizens. I wonder why people are so senseless. How long are they going to support thieves who in no way have helped them with sustainable development? What are they fighting for? Is it the money or the former president? Youth of Sierra Leone have to be wise. Is it 59 years? A fool at 59 is a fool till death. Keep your messages flowing in. The number you can find on your screen. Now, Mr. Amara, you disengaged. Between last Thursday and now, I mean, what is new with respect to re-engaging, if you like, the interview?
You know, I must let the people of Sierra Leone know that investigations have cardinal objectives. They are to prove or to disprove allegations. We disengaged because of the circumstances around then, but since then, although we have not re-engaged with a view to interviewing the suspect, but then we are in constant engagement with the legal team. We are back at the drawing board and we are actually planning, or maybe looking at the plan we had, reviewing that plan with a view to re-engaging. So if you asked what is new as I speak right now is that the review of that original plan is still on, and once we re-engage where need be, like I said, we are responsible to the people of Sierra Leone. We'll get back to the people of Sierra Leone, and the people of Sierra Leone will know.
Was it a mistake on the part of the commission to have that hype around the interview of the former president? Remember, like you said, you've had very high personalities, the former president, vice president, Victor Fo, and other state officials, senior state officials, and like without fanfare. Do we attribute to the seeming, if not pressure, maybe interviews or some other engagements with the media about the interview that you had to conduct? Would you say that actually accounted for what we saw in Makeni in a way?
Well, that which was meant to be would have been, in spite of whatever. The commission made no mistake. Remember, we're responsible to the people of Sierra Leone. We strategize, re-strategize, re-strategize. Our desire is to actually achieve our objective. That the people of Sierra Leone got to know that the former president was going to be interviewed by the ACC did not in any way give any license to anybody to do what it was that we saw in Makeni. So the commission made no mistake. However, by reason of the outcome that we had in Makeni, we are now looking at the board again with a view to reviewing our plans and our strategies.
What is on that board?
The interview that we wish to have with the former president.
Is it likely this week?
It can be any time.
Is it likely this week?
It can be any time.
How, what is certain? Are we with following the request? I mean, you listen there to the former, or rather the current commissioner of the ACC. I mean, making a point at some point that it was a request from the then commissioner to have, I mean, high place officials, a statesman, if you like, they always say, in the person of Ernest by Nkrumah, former president, to have him interviewed, I mean, at his place. Are you still weighing that option, or is it not for consideration anymore?
Well, like I said, we all saw what happened when the commission gave in to that request, which was which we do not regret at all as a commission, because, like I said, our objective is to actually achieve our goal of interviewing, the former president. But then, like you're saying, whether going to Makeni is going to be on the board, everything remains on the board as we review. But then, whereas every ink of every marker remains on the board, the brightness or the prominence of markers on the board will now be affected by what we know and what experience has taught.
In other words, it's less likely that Makeni is an option.
The likelihood of everything is possible, but then the inks on the board do not have equal prominence.
All right, Mr. Tommy, you just listen. I mean, people are still anxious. In other words, they are really saying maybe it was cowardice initially on the part of the ACC to have settled on Makeni. I mean, but then we saw the opportunity. I mean, this was the commissioner who was trying to, if not listen to the legal team, but also to weigh that option that has turned out this way. We have also listened to the ONS, Mr. Keili from the ONS, talking about, I mean, the consequence, had they actually intervened with some force. In all of this, now moving forward, how do you think the different players will now approach this issue? I mean, everybody is waiting for this interview.
Indeed. I think going forward, again, this is entirely for the ACC and I guess the legal team of the former president to sort this out. But I would prefer that they do this as quietly as possible. I mean, if they can be discreet about it so that members of the public are at least left out of it, at least at this stage. Because the truth is that all that the ACC wants from the former president is his own side of the story. It's only fair that they speak to him, and as I've said repeatedly, it is his own interest for him to speak to the ACC. Now, I hope that they go about this quietly, and I hope that the president, because we have to say this as clearly as possible, the former president has to cooperate. He has said it many times. It's now time for him to do it. And if that means, of course, driving to the main offices of the ACC, if it means driving to Freetown, it doesn't matter where the ACC chooses. Because my press release that I issued before that incident, I was very clear. I urged the former president to cooperate and to show up wherever the ACC wanted him, including in one of their offices. And let's be honest, why is it that state institutions spend resources to set up regional offices? It is really to make sure that they decentralize. And if the former president now ordinarily resides in Makeni, I see nothing wrong with the ACC moving to Makeni and interviewing him from their offices. Again, they bent backwards over and are willing to go to his own premises. They wouldn't let ACC do that. It was unfortunate, but I think going forward, let us make sure that we continue talking to the young men and women, parents, citizens, to understand that, as I've said, the ACC works for us. We have employed the ACC. It is okay to support your brother. It's okay to support your party member. It's okay to be party picking, but it is not okay to disrupt law enforcement. It could lead to very grave consequences. We've seen that in other countries, which is why I can't help but repeat my commendation for the leadership of the Sierra Leone police and all the entire security architecture for the restraint that they exercise. I hope that people will understand that this is basically at the heart of the rule of law. We may disagree with what the ACC is doing. We may defend the former president all we like, but unless the evidence that the ACC has is tested by a court of law, if they ever decide to indict me, I think there's also, Mr. Kapwa, there's also need for public education.
I was going to ask that. I mean, how do we heighten public education to build an informed society?
I've read a number of pieces. Really, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but very ill-informed positions on what has been happening in the last 2. I mean, some of them I know they are deliberate. They are feigning ignorance. They know better, but they've written all manner of, stuff about what is ongoing, about some of us comment on these issues, but things like that don't fluster me. I'm too old. I have a broad back. Just send it. It may not mistake. So there is need for education. I see Mr. Keili talked about victims and perpetrators. Yes, we have a lot of young men and women who are victims of the decades of bad governance. They have minimal education, no functional literacy. They are at the beck and call of politicians. They really do not know what is happening here. For crying out loud, ACC is a law enforcement institution, but they are not going to be the ones investigating, indicting, if they ever indict, and convicting former President Nkrumah. Perhaps let's use this as an opportunity to do some education. Whatever evidence they have on him, if they decide to indict him, and they haven't even gone to that point, but if they decide to indict him, that evidence will be tested in a court of law. There will be an independent arbiter who look at the evidence, and I don't think they doubt the fact that our judiciary, no matter what we think of the judiciary has acquitted persons who are believed to be members of the opposition or who are members of opposition. Mr. Minkalu Mansare, a member of the APC, who was indicted by the ACC, right?
Investigated.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, we are.
Yes, I think he was indicted.
He was, yeah.
And acquitted. That's the point I'm making. Was acquitted, discharged, right? Still, yes, was acquitted and discharged. So that is perhaps one of several cases that we can talk about. So members of the public need to understand that yes, we may have our fears, our suspicions, but at the end of the day, regardless of our fears and suspicions, putting barricades or stopping the ACC is not gonna, blocking the road is not gonna stop ACC from carrying out its legal responsibility.
Mr. Keili, you made very important comments, in my view, insofar as the events in Makeni are an issue. You said those events were aided and abetted, that they were well financed, well planned. Tell us more.
I'm a professional security man. I cannot tell you everything. But investigations are good. We now have evidence, documentary from intelligence and otherwise. They are financiers, all of those who orchestrated. You understand? Mm-hmm. The monies that were dished out to them, places where they met, who were big leaders. We have evidences of all of those. Yeah, and it is those people that we are going after. But suffice it to know that if there is going to be any further engagement, our security posture this time is going to be different.
How different?
Different in the sense, let people don't think that the security sector is weak because we decided to remain professional, to save lives and properties. But then, as a deterrent, no sooner we agree with the ACC, wherever the location is going to take place, we'll ensure that the kind of security we provide for that particular occasion will not even warrant anybody to attempt any mischief. Because we will not even allow you to embark on the mischief. It is because when we allow you, we begin to think about, employ a carrot and stick approach in order to save lives and properties. I was quite deliberate because that they use children, minors, as human ships, because they knew, of course, there will be consideration for them. But for now, going henceforth, on hindsight, we've had a retrospect, we've done a post-mortem, both with the ACC and others, in a security council meeting. The modus operandi we are not going to over-securitize any location, but we are going to make the kind of security provision that is proportionate to the occasion. Because we now know that there are definitely bound to be spoilers, and we cannot allow those spoilers to erode whatever gains.
So you're talking about your plan B?
That's our plan,
which is on the board that the ACC is.
Yes, that's our operational plan B.
You said some invitations have been made in view of what happened in Makeni. Well, maybe not arrest at this stage, or maybe they are even arrested.
Well, they have actually not been arrested.
Okay.
So it is arrests that have been effected now.
How were they arrested? Was there any fanfare again?
No, there was no fanfare. Of course, some of them were picked up in the very unholy hours of the night.
Do we know them?
Some were apprehended. Yes, the police have pulled out a press release today. Their names are there. Some of their names are so difficult to call.
Okay.
But they are there. Some are section chiefs. Some are residing around my life.
We understand he's a paramount chief. Is that true?
No, the paramount chief, Kasaga, was invited for questioning, but he was released.
Okay.
Yes, it's the section chief and some other functionaries that are still under custody. And even some of these peddlers, video peddlers, they're peddlers, because the police pulled out a press release, yeah, that those videos that they were selling, those cassettes that they were selling, I mean, they were insightful, yeah, that they should desist from those. But some of you are still, running commentaries on those things. I think they were very hyperactive, making their own commentaries, even when the video was self-explanatory, leading to further incitement. I mean, some of those have also been arrested. But suffice it to know that investigations are still ongoing and arrests are still going to be effected.
Mr. Tumi made the point that before the Thursday event, I mean, the police, members of the security forces, have been bashed all over the place, described as heavy-handed, not using, proportionate force to address issues, and like. And then we saw probably last week, like you said, I mean, tried weighing the situations, tried protecting the lives of others. On a normal day, what professional approach would you employ to control rowdy, events like those in Makeni?
Yes, well, Mr. Kapo, if you notice, the past couple of years, I mean, the police have been bashed a lot with regards to high-handedness in their operations and the like. And mind you, the Office of National Security was actually established to provide oversight of security sector institutions, not only the police, military, and the like. And the way our architecture is set up, it's set up in such an integrated manner, yeah, that even when police have primacy over internal security, even when they have the responsibility of carrying out operations, but in terms of policy, operational planning to give it strategic policy and guidance is taken collectively through a forum called the National Security Council Coordinating Group. So based on past incidents that we've had, so we noticed some of those lapses. For going forward, we said no. For every operation, let's come and sit down, look at the operational aspect of it, look at the strategic directives that are to be given, and even while you want to make use of military assets in the event of MACP, let us look at the circumstances and the caveats that are attached to those. Yeah, so it was such planning that we put into this. Yeah, and going forward, it's going to be part of our routine planning. That every event that we have that is cross-cutting, yeah, that is cross-cutting, involving the entire security sector apparatus, whether it's policy directives or operational directives, decisions are going to be taken collectively, planning is going to become done collectively, so that even in the event of any mishap, we'll collectively take the responsibility. So that is why you saw a mass departure. Yeah, and going forward, it is going to be a continuous process as part of our security planning for all national events that we have.
All right, let's go through the next set of text messages. The former president is not an exception. ACC must do the needful. ONS, why didn't see here the police arrest the masquerade? I think the ACC miscalculated and got this whole thing about interviewing the former president wrong. So if the former president is an alleged suspect and now is an ordinary citizen, he should be civil to the commission. He should be civil to the commission. I can't see some text here missing. But assuming after the interview, if the facts show the former president has a case to answer, what will be the commission's position? Probably this for Mr. Amara. Please, ACC, invite the former president to Freetown for interview. Corruption will not end, I see, if we allow our institutions to function. If we don't allow institutions to function, no one is above the law. So please let the ACC do its job. Salon, too small, but turn out people then they suffer. The devil then come out like na holiday. I swear, if me na the IG, people then for know if na rare devil. What is the meaning of the parade? Who are they? Bravo to the security forces. Bottom line, ACC will live to fight another day better. The decent thing to have been done by the former president should have been to behave like a statesman. What happened on the 8th in Makeni is like we are in a state of war. Mr. ONS Director, why did you not pass the information before the incident to government? The day our country will have an opposition like ANC in South Africa, that will be the day our country will rejoice. Sokoban and they die. Let them for don't fire. The probably some text here basing. Let's think Sierra Leone. Let's stop supporting corrupt politicians. We need better Sierra Leone. They wanted facilities and then blamed them on the police, the army, and the present government. Please do not allow them to achieve their objectives. All I have to say here, the former president is not above the law of this land. The action in Makeni was well planned by all, including the former president. Well, Sierra Leoneans, we should think about Sierra Leone. Let us all unite to build this land that we love and that we call Mama Saloon. What happened in Makeni was really unfortunate, but to be honest, it was a calculated plan. Some of the text messages, maybe you may want to respond to a few, Mr. Amara.
Yes, thank you very much. I would want to thank the texters. Of course, when you fight craft and you hear people send such text messages, you really realize the fact that you are not standing alone, the people are standing with you. It's a fight, like we always say, that you are only on the vanguard in the fight against craft in Sierra Leone. But when is the people's fight? That's why the commission is called the People's Commission. I thank you very much, Texas, for taking your precious moment to actually send text messages. I want to respond to this question, which is a direct one to the commission, that what would be the next step? Should there be evidence after interviews? Like I said earlier, investigations are to prove or disprove allegations. We have allegations, and of course, just quickly, somebody referred to the former president as an alleged suspect. He's not an alleged suspect, he's a suspect. Alright, we are not alleging that he's a suspect. Anybody that comes under investigation or that's being investigated is a suspect. Now, should we interview the suspect? And at the end of the investigation, because interviewing the suspect is just part of the investigations. There are other processes involved, some of which we have undertaken, and interviewing him, beyond interviewing him, we'll have to take further steps. And once the investigations are concluded, the file will now be passed on to the legal team for an opinion on what evidence would have been gathered so far. And the opinions in criminal matters of the nature that we investigate at the ACC are given on one of two limbs. Whether there is evidence to support the allegation which is being investigated, or whether there isn't any evidence supporting the allegation which has been investigated. The midpoint, some of the times, may be recommendations for further work. But at the end of it, if there isn't any support, which is highly unlikely, I mean, if the evidence does not support the allegation, which is highly unlikely, we'll come back to the people of Sierra Leone, like we did in the Yansane matter, to tell the people of Sierra Leone that we've completed our investigations.
What was the Yansane matter, by the way?
Well, there was an allegation, there were investigations we are doing in regard, he being, ambassador,
the
the now Secretary General to the Opposition of People's Congress.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he was ambassador to Ghana, and then we realized that for a period over 700 days he was not on post. He was not in post, but then was receiving salaries. When we investigated, we realized that although he was not in post, and he was sent by the government then to actually do his work in Ghana, away from post, within the period that was investigated, that was an issue, he was still doing state functions. So we went back to the people of Sierra Leone, came back to the people of Sierra Leone, and told them we did not have evidence to support that investigation, and he went off. So that's how we do our work. But where there is evidence, the obvious is there. And unfortunately, Section 89 of our Act has been amended to accommodate plea bargaining. So subsection 2 of Section 89, we get the evidence, we present it to you, and if you think you don't want to go to court as a suspect, you will come to table and we'll negotiate it, we'll settle it out of court, we'll have an out-of-court settlement. Otherwise, as per provisions of law, we'll have little but no option, well, very little or no option, but to go to court.
Other people, if you like, personally, we are referred to the commission by the white papers also for investigations. I mean, where are we with that? Are we waiting for the former president, to have his interview done and get the orders, or are you already on that?
In fact, once the white paper came out on a Thursday, we commenced our investigation. We drew up our investigation plan immediately the announcement, the white paper was launched. And we commenced investigations the following day, that was Friday. Investigations are on. We've spoken to a number of persons who are suspects and whom we are investigating, and certainly we'll have to come back to the people of Sierra Leone on such investigations.
Mr. Keili, I mean, a few text messages in respect to...
Yeah, well, thanks for the commendation for the restraint that we exercised. But somebody was asking specifically why we did not, or the police did not arrest the masquerade. I mean, you cannot...
That did not even die. Someone said that the masquerade, they did not die.
Well, in the height of such chaos or confusion, I mean, you can exercise restraint. They can always be arrested. These are human beings.
Are they?
Are they? They are human beings. They are
Muslims, they are devils, we are told.
They are sponsors. They are sponsors. How they are arrested. And by the way, one of the chiefs, section chief arrested, was specifically as a result of that he masterminded, orchestrated the coming out of those masquerades. So I mean, they can waste time. But in the heat of that, thousands of youth going on the rampage, you want to go and arrest masquerades? I mean, you can imagine.
Did you notice the attire, Mr. Keili? I mean, you are saying this was something that was well planned and probably financed.
Yes.
They had, I mean, doing uniform.
Yes.
If you like.
Yes. So
what does that message send to?
Well, so that means in terms of uniformity, that there was a central command that was guiding their actions, dictating their actions, and perhaps even the routes that they were to use, that they were using, or that they were to use, as the case might be. So there was a central command. It depicts that it was well orchestrated and planned, because they came out for no reason, for no justification, for no merrymaking, as the case might be, but just to cause mischief.
Right.
That's the only reason.
Mr. Tomi, I mean, the ACC is re-engaging on this interview, and like, what's the level of trust among all parties following that drama?
I hope, I mean, we have been assured on a number of occasions now that there is some good rapport between the ACC and lawyers representing former President Nkrumah. I mean, as lawyers, always...
We had the same good rapport prior to the events of the 8th.
In light of what happened on the 8th and all the discussions that have followed that unfortunate incident, I have reasons to believe that there is now more willingness and certainly some intention to get this done over with, because the former president is basically stuck with the ACC, to put it mildly. Nothing is going to deter them, nothing is going to send them away. You just heard from Mr. Languba, Keili, if needs be, security architecture will provide the needed support. So it is in the best interest of all, in the best interest of the country's peace and security, in the interest of the lives of the people of Makeni and by extension people of Sierra Leone, that this is done over with as soon as possible. I mean, I don't know when it's going to happen, when they are going to reschedule it, but in the meantime, I expect the lawyers representing the former president and the ACC staff to be in touch, so that if there are any sticking points, those are resolved, and that we do not come back to this place talking about this, because something tells me that the ACC won't, allow another deferral once it has been rescheduled. So that it is absolutely important that they build that trust and they understand exactly what is going to happen, so that it's just one. And this is the thing, viewers, former President Nkrumah is a very important person in our society, but that's just one of several cases that the ACC is investigating. So if we spend the entire time talking about one case, no matter how important former President Nkrumah may be in our society, it means that we spend a lot of resources just focusing on one issue. And somehow, you now have people saying, he's getting special treatment, right? We understand that. We all talk about equality before the law. No one is above the law. But sometimes you can respect the law, enforce the law, but ensure that people who deserve respect, who deserve recognition, some kind of acknowledgement for their role, their standing in society. I think that's the sort of deference that was given to former President Nkrumah. I don't think anyone should seek to abuse it as it was abused on the 8th. Going forward, I hope we can get this done and move forward in the interest of justice and accountability.
Mr. Koivaya, we have to leave and we must go. Your parting shots from the position of the ACC in all of this.
The ACC was created to fight corruption. We have a duty to fight corruption. We are fighting corruption, and we are going to continue to fight corruption. Whatever it is, wherever it is that the arrow points, we must go, as long as the law permits us to so do. So let the people of Sierra Leone rest assured that the ACC will continue to fight corruption. Its determination to fight corruption will not wane. Rather, whenever we meet any obstacle or any hurdle, we actually reposition ourselves with some more determination to move forward. Because we cannot as a commission afford to let the people of Sierra Leone judge us when we would have left seats in an adverse manner. All we need is a fight of the people, is a fight for the people, and let the people of Sierra Leone stand solidly with the ACC, for it is we at the ACC that are fighting for the people, and it is a fight, it's a winnable one.
Fight for the soul of the country, your commissioner will always say. Exactly. Mr. Keili, your parting shots.
Yeah, I think we'd like to reassure Sierra Leoneans that the security sector is poised to provide the requisite professional and security for peace and tranquility to reign, but that anybody who wants to serve as a deterrent will face the full wrath of the law, and we are poised to do that. So we'd like to admonish all Sierra Leoneans, devoid of the Makeni incident, to respect the rule of law, to respect the constitutional order of the state, and to respect the law enforcement agencies and their various institutions or appendages.
Well, that's it for this edition of Bottom Line.